Okay, you can start.
Yeah, that's, you don't need the mouse?
All right. Are we all set?
Yes, you can start.
All right, perfect. All right, hi everyone, and welcome to the fourth quarter 2016 DASH conference call. I'm Ryan Taylor, Director of Finance at DASH, and I'll be the primary moderator for today's call. The call is being recorded and will be distributed on our YouTube channel shortly. I'm joined on the call today by several key members of the DASH core team. Evan Duffield, the founder of DASH, John Kindle, who leads our Evolution API team, Daniel Diaz, Head of Business Development, and Robert Wyko, who leads our project management function. We're holding our quarterly call later than normal due to the extraordinary workload surrounding the rollout of 12.1. And because the call is so late into the quarter, you can expect to hear some updates as well from this quarter when that's appropriate. So before we begin, let me share some additional information about the core call format. Let's see if I can advance the slide here. To avoid background noise, all listeners will be on mute at the duration of the call. We'll first share a set of prepared remarks and accompanying slides, followed by a question and answer session. Questions should be submitted in the chat window. And other than the time limit of the call, we won't be restricting the number of questions, but we would like everyone to have an opportunity to ask questions. So we'll prioritize questions from other participants as needed. And keep in mind that the call is intended as an update on the core team's overall strategy and operations. So questions should ideally reflect that intent. If you have more technical-oriented questions or detailed questions, another venue might be more appropriate. And so if we look at today's agenda, we're going to start with an update from John on the software development, including the development and testing of 12.1 and Evolution. Daniel is going to provide an update on our business development efforts and the dramatic progress that his team has made there. Philip is going to share some, Robert is going to share some updates on the growing efforts to promote DASH, particularly through our international outreach program, which now includes French support. And then Robert is going to walk us through some of the project management efforts as well. I'll be walking us through some details on the core team's financials, including our income, expenses, and our balance sheet at the end of the year. And I'll also be covering some of our key performance indicators for the quarter and for the full year on both the network and our financials. And I think the big message that you'll see coming out of today, of course, is that DASH continues to perform incredibly well. And at our current scale, we're really now able to fund large integrations within a single month. We're able to pay our staff at a much more sustainable level. And while it's not yet market rate, financial constraints are beginning to ease surrounding the project. And because our current ranking as the third largest currency and the growth rates that we've experienced so far this year, mainstream media is beginning to take an interest in the project. Just in the last week, we've had articles in MarketWatch and Bloomberg, which were just, unattainable for us in prior quarters. So things are going really, really well. Our market cap has more than quadrupled so far this year, and that translates into an amazing increase in our budget and resources, which is going to really enable a rapid expansion of our team and our capabilities here this year. The changes to the project that the market cap growth makes possible is nothing short of transformative. And we've started the process of detailing our plan for the next phase of growth. And this will include greater investments in research, infrastructure, of course, software development, marketing, business development, and operations. And so I think over the coming weeks, you'll start to see the results of that planning come to fruition. So as you, I'm sure, recall, these are the 4 areas that were the priority development areas for 2016 that we outlined back in January of 2016. And so we structured our team and the activities throughout the year to deliver against these priorities. And update on today's call will focus on this structure as well, just like we did on the Q3 call. And those 4 areas are software development, business development, marketing and communication, and project organization. I'm not going to run through the entire team like we did on last quarter's call, but I will point out that the team continues to grow. We've got a number of new full-time developers and other resources that have joined the team. This is the slide on our development area. We've got 6 new folks there. We've got a number of supporting developers that continue to stay involved with the project. And the supporting functions surrounding the team have largely remained the same. We have started adding graphics and design folks to help with everything from marketing to evolution design activities. And so with that, I'll turn things over to John to provide an update on our software development efforts. John, are you there?
I am, yeah. And just making sure you guys are able to hear me.
We are. Go ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to present on some of this stuff. Really over the last several months, we've made huge strides in terms of, many different aspects of Dash. So I'm going to begin looking at some of our goals for that had been outlined for 2016, and go from there. So we'll see over on the left-hand side, we had just a number of high-level goals. We were, trying to look for ways to make running a master node safer, and by, really working towards integrating that with hardware wallets such as Trezor and KeepKey. We've actually made quite a bit of progress with regards to that. And really, when you look at the work being done in 2016, it was primarily foundational work. I believe Daniel's going to talk a little bit more about how that foundational work is then, building a bridge, so to speak, into the business dev side of things, in terms of really integrating those things in ways that typical end users can actually use. One of the items that was voted on very early last year was also, really aimed at achieving a network consensus on, hey, when the time is right, do we want to move towards a 2 meg block size? Throughout the year, we did spend some time looking at what exactly would need to happen within Dash to be able to do that. And the conclusion that we reached at that point in time is that, based on the number of transactions on the network, now wasn't yet the right time, but when that time is right, we are ready to be able to move forward on that quickly. The last 2 items really related to, looking at those core features that really set Dash aside from any other coin in the crypto space, meaning, the privacy protect feature, as well as the Instant X feature. And I am happy to at least give you a little bit of an update in terms of some things that we've been able to include in the 12.1 release that really have improved both of those functionalities. In terms of coin mixing, a number of small improvements have been integrated into the 12.1 code base that was recently launched, which are really aimed at allowing the mixing process to go faster. When you look at the instant send side of things, alongside a major refactor of the code base itself, we were also able to lower the fees for sending those. And again, it's aimed at making those features easier for the typical end user. Looking at the Q4 plans, one of our main plans, of course, was to start to grow the team. And you can see in that previous slide, since these goals were laid out and up until today, we've been able to add 6 new people to the team. And our goal and our plan, of course, is to continue scaling out our team. You also see a reference there to 12.2, and I think really the only constant when you're dealing with IT technology is that there's not really everything changes. And so, through the course of 12.1 development, what we ultimately decided to do was take many of those features that were originally slated for 12.2, and you can see on that slide, we kind of had that in mind. We ended up rolling those into 12.1 with the intention of building the best possible foundation with which we can then start to do all of the other parts there, looking at Dash Drive and looking at the evolution of front end and how that links into the back end, as well as the API. If you can move on to the next slide, please. So let's just talk a little bit about the major achievements of Q4. So during that period, we were able to complete the primary dev work for 12.1 and ended up launching approximately 1 month into the year, was February 5th, I believe. Also during that time period, the primary development work on the new Dash.org website was finished. And really that first period of Q1, we were working on content, getting everything ready so that we could launch that alongside the 12.1 core release. During that period of time, also quite a bit of research and planning was conducted looking at how exactly we want Dash Drive to work and how we want DAPI to work. And as mentioned, we were also able to expand the dev team quite a bit to allow us to be able to start to action these items a lot quicker. Through that process, we did start to identify ways that we can work better together as a team. Looking at the planning process and really making sure that, despite the fact that we're spread all over the world, looking at ways that we can improve the way that we're able to communicate with one another and share project plans really is just going to allow us to take that next step to be able to deliver Dash Evolution, which is our next step here. What we've been working on so far in Q1 is really building out highly detailed plans and models of how each of those components that you see there will fit together and how specifically they'll work. And I'm really happy with the progress that we've made. Now, at this point, we're not at a stage where we're able to share those things publicly, but I do have a strong belief that once that process is finished, the remainder of the actual development side of things should go quite smoothly. Also, in Q1, we are going to be looking at continuing to expand the dev team, really drawing from those two things I mentioned, having a detailed plan on what exactly we want to build, and then having those mechanisms in place to help us stay on the same page. So I am very, very, very much looking forward to continuing to work on that, and I'll pass it over to Daniel.
All right, Daniel, do you want to go ahead with business development?
For sure. Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. I think there's been a lot of progress in terms of business development, and obviously because we're doing this call well into Q1 2017, we have already seen some of these results and some things that are happening on the network already. So we will be referencing those when helpful, right? So first, some of the things that we wanted to prioritize starting last year. And as John mentioned, it was a year of trying to build a foundation for the things that were needed in terms of us to be able to integrate upwards into the user services. So we recently put out a strategy update from the BizDev team, where we talk about the concept of the blockchain adoption ladder. And I think it very much applies to what we are discussing today, where last year we were working a lot on trying to create tools and port all important libraries that were needed in order to interface with our blockchain. And that really has been extremely useful moving on our path towards more end-user service integration for Dash. Okay, so some of our objectives were to improve fiat access to Dash, focus on ATM machines and access to tokens, from the public, establish partnerships on the hardware wallet integration side, to facilitate storage of coins, and obviously with the intention to be able to secure masternodes from hardware wallets and expand merchant acceptance, right? And on the plan side, for Q4 2016, we started to focus on the sales team expansion, or the BizDev team expansion, try to support non-core proposals coming from the community, and organic leads, because obviously for any business operation, inbound leads are quite important and should be the result of proper marketing. But we had a combination of a focus between managing inbound opportunities and just plain cold call sales to try to bring integrations to Dash. Then we have the technical integrations team set up. In that sense, John Kindle, who just spoke, has been critical, and he's our go-to person right now with his team for the business development opportunities that we get. So we would typically process business integration opportunities through John's team. So this is something that we started to plan on Q4, and that now is actually happening. So contribution to the creation of a contracting framework. This is an ongoing process with the project management team, in which we are working on a handoff process, so that when we get an opportunity on the BizDev side and we get it to the point where the partner has said yes and is ready to work on the mechanics of integration, there can be an appropriate workflow process that then goes to the project management team. So we're slowly moving in that direction. Our more recent partnerships that come from the business proposals on the Treasury have all gotten either MOUs signed by both parties or actual contracts, including things like BlockCypher and some of the major changes coming on board soon that have not yet been revealed. So also marketing and PR support is something we interface a lot with. On the one hand, because we get a lot of inbound opportunities, including from great, let's say, independent or community-driven proposals like Dash Detailed or the Crypto Show. And they have played an incredible role on the marketing side to generate leads for our team, and we're very thankful for that. Then we have developing an evolution DAPI sales strategy. So as part of that business development strategy update we put out recently, we're obviously, everyone knows that we're partnering with BlockCypher, who offers API services for businesses in this space. So that has been incredibly educational for us in terms of developing our ideas for how DAPI will eventually interface with the business community. And also, I think it's going to be a great asset to have in tandem with our Evolution API, because a lot of the startups do prefer to retain the services of their existing providers for different reasons, business reasons, legal reasons. So although the Evolution API will open up the opportunity for anyone to interface with the Dash blockchain independently and easier. The relationship also with the partnerships that offer API services is going to be incredibly important, and they may even help to drive Evolution adoption. So finally, we wanted to implement an ATM compliance program. So legal research has been progressing quite rapidly on that, and we recently received both documentation from Cogent Law as well as some audio guides that walk the user through the process of going through these documents, right? I have already shared early with a couple of community members that have Lemon machines running with Dash, like Miner237, who has his machine already running. So I shared some of this documentation kind of a little bit early with him and a couple of other interested users. But in reality, we are preparing a legal section on our website that will include both this documentation available for any interested Dash user and the legal research done by Cooley LLP, which is in the process of preparing the remarks that will go directly in the website. And our most recent communication with both these legal firms is from this week. So Marco is hard at work at this, as well as Cogent. So can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. So these are some of the major achievements from Q4. Like I said, we tried to reflect what happened at that period, but just because we are already well into Q1, there are some things that would need to be referenced that are more current. So negotiations with major fiat exchanges started back in Q4. So the work we do in business development sometimes doesn't really show for months, right? So a lot of you that may have running businesses would know that some business opportunities have long sales cycles, especially around blockchain and trying to move businesses within our space towards an integration. So things that you see that finally reach the PR or the press release status have been on the works for weeks before that. And so we've seen now that we have some fiat exchanges coming online. We have others that are in the process, and we also have brokers that are coming online pretty soon. So this is all the result of many weeks of work that, of course, date back to Q4 and even before that. So we now have native support for Dash on KeepKey, Trezor, and Ledger. Although in the case of KeepKey and Trezor, they're also prepared to be able to run Mashnodes from them. And I think we're waiting on some update from Ledger to be able to do this. Now, this is not a very easy process at the moment, as you have to run some scripts to do it. But we're also now working on making it easy so it can really reach our investors. So like I mentioned before, the integrations team is now in place, led by John Kindle, who presented before me, and is our go-to team for integrations. The legal research projects we also talked a little bit about should be concluded this month, so by the end of Q1. And we are working hard to have this new legal section on the website. But right now we have the materials we need, but I'm starting a project with Philip, who is currently coordinating the website, to plan this new website section. We have some wireframes. It has to go to design with Ether Design, and we finally have to publish. So it does take a little bit of time to go from getting the materials from the legal firms to preparing a website for public consumption, but we're moving in that direction. We also wanted or started outreach campaigns to attract new partnerships. And actually, it's a little bit counterintuitive how we got to our 2017 strategy update and our partnership with BlockCypher. Because this started back around November when we closed a lot of partnerships where people said yes to Dash. A good example to that is BitInca, which is on the works for integration. So some of those partnerships that started Q4 last year, where people said yes, got stuck because there wasn't an API web service available for them. So most of these companies are not running Bitcoin full nodes, and they rely on services like BitGo or BlockCypher to be able to interface with the blockchains. So in the absence of a service like this, and in the absence of evolution, there was just no way to move forward with a number of opportunities, at least 6. But thankfully, that has been resolved now, and the Masternode Network supported our project to partner with BlockCypher, and we're now working very hard on bringing those leads in and helping them as soon as the API integration is ready, which is not yet. So right now, we're kind of just keeping communications open with the leads that are interested and preparing for integration when the API is ready, which should be, early April, we're hoping. And finally, we started recruiting for new business positions. As you know, that concluded in Matthew Meek joining the team. And now we have a new person joining. So that's another addition to the team that I should be able to make public soon, as I really haven't finalized 100% that yet. But then we would have another member coming on board pretty soon. So in terms of areas from improvement from Q4, I think communication was a big issue. And it's something that we're trying to work on, and Matt is helping a lot. We just needed to structure a little bit more, as it was a bit overwhelming to do all the background work and also be front and center with the community about the things that we're doing, especially because our relationships with partners limit the amount of communication that we can do ahead of approval for public release of information. So we primarily work with businesses. We are the only DAO in a network of businesses, private businesses that have concerns in terms of public disclosure of their plans. So we have to work around that constraint, and we are trying our best to get permission from them to release information as soon as possible. So Matthew is taking a lot of the responsibility of connecting with the community, being in the forums, being in the Slacks, answering questions. So hopefully you've seen some of that happen more recently, and we hope it will continue into the future. We also needed to focus more on B2B services, just because of the way the industry is structured, and that's something we already addressed. So I'll just go to the next one. And then expand the team to be able to handle growth, which is something we already covered too. So finally, in terms of next steps for Q4, we had to conclude some negotiations with the fiat exchanges. Some of them have already happened. So we had Bitfinex recently. There's another one coming in the next 2 weeks or so. And then we have other conversations open that may happen a little bit later this year. We also needed a complete set of tools and libraries. This is something John's team helped a lot with, and I feel right now we have all the interfacing tools we need at that, let's say, second level of the blockchain adoption ladder. You can visit that on our forums. And now we're finalizing that third level, which is the API web services, and that's going really well. So finally, we needed to figure out mechanics integrations to new partners. So this is where we're catching up right now with opportunities we generated Q4 that needed some of these tools and integrations to be able to actually reach production. So we're close with many of those. And partner with B2B services in the space. I think that's something we've accomplished. BlockCypher is one of them, but there are more coming in the near term. So I think those were our updates on the BizDev side, and I'll let you take over now, Robert.
Thank you, Daniel. So my name is Robert Więcko. I'm a project manager within Dash. And at the very beginning, I need to share some excuses. Let's say this part was going to be covered by Philip, who has done a fantastic job during Q4 in marketing and communication space. Unfortunately, last days he's suffering from the terrible flu and is not able to join the call. Therefore, I will be covering this part. During 2016, our goals in marketing and communication space was to participate in number of conferences and events in crypto space mainly, especially the North American Bitcoin conference among them, but also the other important events, and also conduct a formal relationship campaign to build awareness about Dash, to build awareness within the crypto industry, but also outside the industry. Of course, we were going to increase media presence and be present on different channels, media channels within the within the space, and try to make relations with the financial media. Our Q4 goals were to translate all wiki pages into 4 major languages and start French translations. We were going to launch a new web page in all languages and support our developers in translations, and have more presence on conferences, different conferences. At the end of the year 2016, we were going to work on PR for outside crypto publications and inside crypto space, as I mentioned before. And also a part of the duties in marketing and communication is maintenance of our social media channels. Can you switch to the next slide, Brian, please? The major achievements within the Q4 was the fact that the wiki pages are already translated in top 4 languages, mainly translated in top 4 languages, so English, Chinese, French, Portuguese, and I guess Russian pages are complete or almost complete at the moment. That there is a lot of work on other languages happening as well. The team was actively working on the development and translations of the new Dash.org website, which is visible nowadays. The web page is online, available in several versions, and it works great. We have started new approach to conferences. We have started to go not only to crypto-related or Bitcoin-related conferences, but also we have been on other financial conferences to present Dash and to establish new partnerships and relationships in the space. And also we've been working on PR outside of the crypto industry. Thanks to our PR agency, Waxman PR, we've been able to publish numerous articles and publications in major, maybe not major, but significant titles. And it started to be achieved during the Q4. Last one, you can see yesterday the publication in Bloomberg mentioning Dash. In the past, there were other titles like Forbes, if I remember well, mentioning Dash. What we can see as areas of improvement in communication is regular internal communications within the team. Our team grew significantly last month, and what definitely needs to be improved is a communication between the sub teams and team members. This is what we are going to do in this quarter, in the current quarter, and also we want to spread awareness about Dash in the broader financial industry, not only crypto related and blockchain related industry, but also typical, let's say, old-fashioned financial industry. Our next step is to continue work on wiki pages and do more updates on Dash.org website. Of course, we are going to be present on conferences and events. We will continue to go to the major blockchain events, but also we are going to be visible outside the crypto space. We are going to continue work with our public relations agency and spread the news about Dash. And keep maintain social media channels, and also what is new, we are going to start working on partnerships with academic and research and development organizations to promote Dash there. We are going to go into the let's say most innovative and promising places in order to attract people with Dash. Can I have a next slide? Thank you. Regarding project organization, in 2016 we were going mainly to work on improvements in communication and processes within and outside the Dash core team. We wanted to establish end-to-end project management framework and follow the framework in order to deliver our projects. Our goal was to refine the internal organization of the core team in order to prepare it for expansion and growth. And in connection to this, we were going to introduce a robust and effective financial processes for our team. In Q4, we were going to be focused on strategic planning and creation of effective team structure, including support team and quality assurance team. Our goal was to work on Dash integration process and also on contracting framework for our newcomers, together with onboarding process. The goal was to define first approved version of project management framework, and of course we are the organization as a let's say PMs and financial functions. We were going to support all of our technical staff in order to deliver the goals. ATM compliance support was also one of the goals for the team. Next slide, please. One of the major achievements during the last quarter of 2016 was a really transparent finance management done by Ryan. He has done an excellent job with adoption of the software, reporting processes, and submission of the proposals to the system. He was working also on Arizona State University partnerships. He started to work during the Q4. As you know, it was very successful, and at the moment Ryan and Evan are in the office in ASU. So the achievement was great. Also, we have been coordinating around 15 projects during Q4, which is a little bit lower number than Q3 due to the fact that some of them were put on hold, some of them were closed, and we have opened new projects. We have been working on recruitment and onboarding support for our organization, and also initiated to create an HR processes and hire HR person to manage our staff within the Dash core team. Our numbers grew in terms of headcount, grew significantly, and it becomes impossible to be managed only by existing staff. We definitely see a need to have a professional HR person or company helping us with staff management. We have supported our team in preparations to a number of conferences and worked on delivery process during the time. Our areas for improvement is definitely strategic planning. At the moment, we are starting to think about bigger perspective for the entire organization, not only for development, because our strategic direction for development is set a long time ago. However, as an organization, we grew, and we need to look at it from more strategic perspective. Therefore, HR is something to improve, communication within the larger organization is something to improve, and also coordination between business development and project delivery is something that we are going to work on. Our next steps during the first quarter of 2016 will be the long-term strategic planning for development and the entire organization. Also, we want to open Dash office in US, and it already happened, as you may know. We have extended our project management capacity. We want to extend our project management capacity within the team and also hire the HR person, which I mentioned before. And based on these two factors, we want to create a flexible Dash core team structure and organization in order to have a coordinated evolution delivery this year. Marketing and PR support will remain our duties during the first quarter as well. Thank you. I hand it over to you, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Robert. So at this point, I'll walk everybody through some of the financial information from the last quarter and from the full year. So the third quarter marks the first time that we started tracking income, expenses, and balance sheet financials in a fully auditable fashion. So the reporting we provide covers only the second half of the year. And we'll continue doing that going forward, so that starting with 2017, we'll truly have full year numbers. We do conduct our accounting in US dollars to provide a more stable picture of our financials. When your value of your currency is changing by 4 times within a single quarter, it becomes really difficult to conceptualize our growth. So we're using US dollars for our accounting. And what you'll see here is the core team received a total of more than $155,000 in payments from Dash's proposal system during the fourth quarter, bringing the total for the second half of the year to almost $311,000. So that's essentially unchanged from Q3. We faced some currency valuation headwinds during the quarter. They were relatively modest, but that did reduce our full year exchange rate gains by about $5,000. And despite that small headwind, we did manage to exit the quarter with slightly higher assets than we had coming out of Q3. On the income statement, you'll notice uncategorized income and uncategorized expense rose, and that's because our accounting package can't support currency conversions other than those involving the US dollar. And so when we are exchanging Dash or Bitcoin to pay a bill, for example, we have to do this workaround. And so uncategorized income is the incoming Bitcoin, and uncategorized expense is the outgoing Dash, and the difference is trading gains or losses. And so that's the way to read that. So they're not true income and expense items. But excluding currency losses and trading gains, the core team accumulated about $9,000 in reserves during the quarter. And when Dash's value exploded the way that it did here in the current quarters, our savings obviously expanded with it, and expanded in value rapidly. So that's really ensuring that we have adequate exchange rate buffers in place for the increasing scale of our operations here in this quarter. And so the savings that we put away last quarter is going to come in very helpful. And in fact, it already has been incredibly helpful in the sense that, things like the exchange that we funded, we partially relied on saved business development funding in order to make that commitment. And so we are in a very healthy financial position. We exited 2016 with more than $75,000, having hit our balance sheet on the year. And we accumulated all of that in the second half of the year. So moving to the balance sheet, we accumulated the largest balances in our legal, business development, and a variety of evolution budgets. The business development savings, as I said, was already quite useful for us, which allowed us to commit funding for a major exchange, which will launch later this month. And without those savings, we wouldn't have been able to commit to the full amount within one budget cycle, and we probably wouldn't be able to launch until Q3 or Q2 of this year. One thing that I'll point out is that going forward, we do plan to consolidate the various marketing budgets. We had previously broken the marketing and communication budget out into various regional budgets once the money was received. And we just found that it was difficult to manage things that way. By consolidating things back this quarter, we're able to have much more flexibility in terms of how those budgets are spent, and kind of helps manage and oversee that. If we move on to key performance indicators, Dash's market cap was relatively flat during the quarter. Slight declines, but we continue to exhibit strong year-on-year growth rates. Dash's market cap decreased about 3% quarter-on-quarter and increased 289% year-on-year. We exited the quarter claiming about 0.45% of the digital currency market space, which declined from 0.66% the previous quarter, primarily coming from the growth of Bitcoin. And our daily price volatility dropped to a new historic low of around 2.3% as the daily price volatility average. And just to put that into perspective, that's almost as low as Bitcoin's. Now, volatility did jump up here this quarter because of the dramatic price moves that we've seen, but I think it's a healthy sign that, in general, our price volatility continues to drop, and I think it'll continue to drop as our market cap grows. Exchange trading volume continued to accelerate in the quarter as well, growing more than 1,700% year-on-year and 59% over the previous quarter. Of course, this quarter we're seeing much stronger numbers than that. We've seen trading days with more than $20 million changing hands. So I think that the growth this quarter, if I remember correctly, is again more than 100% over the previous quarter so far. And I expect that to strengthen here because March seems to be running at a pretty good clip as well. And trading fees, or transaction fees, excuse me, they set a new record during the quarter at more than 1,400 Dash, and those fees go to Masternode owners and miners. And so as those fees grow, Masternode owners are beginning to benefit. Now, I will make a comment on this quarter, Q1 of 2017. Don't expect this number to increase. The reason for that is during the quarter we had Instant Send turned off for the transition from 12.0 to 12.1. And that is the vast majority of the transaction fees that we receive is because of Instant Send. We also changed the pricing on Instant Send to be on a per input basis. Overall, the the cost of transactions denominated in Dash should drop, although the US dollar equivalent, because of the price growth, might offset that. So don't expect the Q4 number to be exceeded, even though we continue to grow. I think we'll see it start to grow again in the second quarter of this year. If you look at the year-on-year numbers, we hit new records for the lowest price volatility, the highest average trading volume, and the highest transaction fees during the year. And so our growth continues to be quite strong. In terms of usage metrics during the quarter, we saw a downturn in most of the metrics we tracked during the quarter as the peak activity that took place in Q3 subsided. November was a particularly slow month for the network. And so overall, network health remained quite strong. The year-on-year growth continued to be strong. And network congestion remains extremely low, obviously. And our hash rate continued to break new records throughout the quarter as ASICs continued to deploy to the network. So the network security remained quite strong. And we also started tracking social media subscription growth, and we saw substantial gains there as well, around 10% growth quarter on quarter in our Reddit subscribers and about 50% growth in our YouTube subscriptions. And so I think this speaks to the community size just continuing to expand at a rapid pace. And when you annualize those numbers, they're shockingly high. So strong growth in terms of social media interest. And then if you, sorry, I should skip this slide. If you're more graphically inclined, we did once again include graphs of the numbers that you saw on the previous slide. So, you know, if you want to take a look at those, you can when we post these slides. And so if I summarize kind of where we are today, it's really amazing to see the project grow and flourish at the rate that it has. It seems like forever ago, but it was really only Q4 of 2015, the year before, that Dash funded its very first conference when we went to LA BitConf in Mexico City, I think it was. And so the first full year of the budget system now behind us, we just saw tremendous results. With a further quadrupling of our budget since Q4, which over the past year, in 2016, we quadrupled our market cap. And we've already done that again in the first quarter of 2017. So we've grown 16 times since the first quarter that we had a budget system in place. And so I think that it just speaks to the power of that. And, you know, I think that beyond just the financial results, we're making significant impacts in the cryptocurrency industry at this point. We're ranked number 3. We can't really be ignored at this point, to the point that even I think CoinDesk has written a couple of articles about us and refused to do so before. So I think we're at the point where we really can't be ignored. And we've also seen major partnerships already this year, and many more are in the works. And so I think you'll start to see Dash's tentacles start to extend into many different aspects of the cryptocurrency space and start to drive our adoption there. So BlockCypher, Wall of Coins, and major exchanges are all kind of learning firsthand the benefits of partnering with Dash. And with each of these relationships, it's yielding new opportunities for us. So we're actively engaged in increasing number of discussions with top-tier companies that cover the full spectrum of Bitcoin-powered services. And we're seeing a real change in the receptiveness to working with our brand, even among, you know, Bitcoin-only type services. So I think that Dash is on the verge of breaking out of the altcoin sphere and becoming a credible currency in its own right. And on last quarter's call, I asserted that we're entering a new phase of the project in which we should consider nothing outside of our reach. The team has really been proving the assertion that I made correct with every month that passes. I think you should expect that we'll continue to achieve really big things between now and the next quarterly call, which will likely occur in late April or early May. And so I'm just really excited. The entire team, I think, is excited and firing on all cylinders. I just feel like things are going incredibly well. And so with that, I think we can move on to the Q&A section, because that concludes kind of the prepared comments that we had for the call. And what we'll do here is we can start with a list of questions that were submitted ahead of time. And just give me a second to switch over. Okay, so if you want to, once again, if you want to submit a question, you just have to put it into the chat window. I'm going to start with the prepared questions people had sent in ahead of time. We'll address those first, and then I'll move to the chat. All right, so the first question came from Stealth923. Is there any way we can be proactive to finish off the mycelium and proton mail opportunities? And I'll have Daniel cover mycelium, and then when he's done, Robert can talk about proton mail.
Great, thank you, Ryan. So our relationship with mycelium remains very positive. We have a Telegram group in which we interact with them regularly. But the reality is right now they are working on their update of their wallet. So imagine it as a transition like the one we just had from 12.0 to 12.1, where there are major changes in the way the wallet itself works. So although our relationship remains positive and we expect to see Dash integrated as soon as they are really ready for it, we have no control about the, let's say, time frame that their internal update will occur. So we remain in constant communication and just expecting that update to be completed on their end and collaborating in any way we can. But I don't think, to your question, there's anything else we can do beyond what we're already doing, which is supporting them and communicating with them. So I still remain positive about that relationship. It's important to notice that that's a partnership that has not requested any funding from Treasury at this point, and it's just an organic relationship. And I consider it to be healthy, but we'll have to wait for them to complete their transition to their new architecture before Dash can be added. Go ahead, Robert.
Thanks, Daniel. So we are experiencing pretty much the same situation with the Proton Mail. We maintain the relationship with the company, and we proactively share the updates about our network, about protocol and changes we are doing with the API. However, it looks like Proton Mail has other priorities on their side, and in general, cryptocurrency integration is not the first priority of them. They are experiencing some issues with the development of current functionalities, and they are doing a major release very soon. So we're simply waiting for them with integration of Dash. But still remain positive about it. So from the formal perspective, from the formal project management perspective, both of those projects are put on hold. Thanks.
All right. This question comes from Troy Dash. Could you clarify what Evan's role is on the team and whether that role will be changing going forward? And so Evan can answer that one.
So at the beginning of the project, when we first started, it was a very small team, and I led the development, and there wasn't really much redundancy. And so we've been switching to a much more decentralized layout for the team where there's redundancy on all of the major roles. And so I'm moving to more of an advisor role to sit in the background and monitor all of the things going on and make sure everything is, going along according to the plan. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah. So hope that answers the question. And in terms of this next one, this one comes from Oaxaca. Back when I interviewed Evan on a podcast, what seems like a lifetime ago, he laid out a vision for the fee structure under Evolution. The plan was 90% of the users would pay 0 fees, while the top 10% of users based on volume would cover the entire transaction cost. Is this plan still alive? If so, it would create a flood of users to the system.
I do still really like that plan, and I think it's a really good idea. We should definitely test it, but I think we should leave our options open to test other multiple variants so that we could do some sort of like A/B testing to figure out what's the best option for the network, or maybe even have different fee structures for different types of businesses or different avenues of getting Dash integrated into companies and figuring out that as we go so that we're just not limiting our options.
All right. Richard A.O., can the network from the Treasury purchase and run its own servers for masternodes instead of running from existing providers? And he also asked, can users in the Evolution masternode pool vote their shares on proposals such that a majority within the pool creates the singular Evolution masternode vote? So on the first question, can the network from the Treasury purchase and run its own servers for masternodes instead of renting? I think this is possible, but I think that Dash is not in the business of hosting servers. It's not our core competency, nor should it be. And so I think while it's possible, and the technical answer to the question is yes, it can, I don't think we have any intention of running a hosting service. Many good options already exist, in particular for hosting masternodes, and so we'll leave it to the free market to provide those services. And the second question about masternode, do you want to cover that one?
Which one?
Masternode voting for pooled Evolution. Yeah.
So eventually we definitely want to be able to pool votes so that someone can have a part of a masternode, and then we accumulate the votes together, and then the accumulated votes count for one vote on the network, like one full vote. It's definitely still in the works, and it allows us to scale up to much larger sizes and much more decentralized network of voting. So I think it's a really good idea. It's still in the roadmap, but that's going to take a while because we have a lot of foundational work to do before that. So I wouldn't expect it too soon, but it's definitely something we want to do.
All right. Fibble1 asks how masternodes will remain incentivized when the block reward approaches 0 or becomes very small. Daniel?
Sure. I think I can address that one. We've already been experimenting with ideas to be able to do that. The first part of the answer is masternodes would be incentivized in the same ways that miners would be. So this is a shared issue of all the blockchain industry, right? We are all looking for answers. What happens after the rewards go to 0 in terms of emission? I think in general, all blockchains are saying more or less this is going to happen in 100, 150 years. We're going to have some time to figure it out. And most are relying on transaction fees to build up to the point where they can replace rewards. But we really believe that there is a better option in which we should look for added value services that could pay back to the Masternode network and the mining network, right? So since we have our treasury and DAO system, we believe that there are ways in which we could invest later on, even using it as an incubator, right, or to invest in actual businesses that could then pay returns to the Masternode and mining network. So we believe more in looking for an added value avenue in which we can generate incremental fees that do not come from the basic network transaction fees as a much more viable route to accomplish this. Another possibility is to create programs in which, services, ATM machines or different sorts of services also pay back to the Masternode and mining network in return for added value, services that we could provide. So it's obviously not clear at this point. I don't think anyone in the industry has a final answer yet, but I do feel we are much better positioned to resolve this issue in the near term by using our advantage from a DAO perspective to even take direct investments in businesses in the future.
And let me expand on this answer a little bit. I agree with everything that Daniel said, but maybe a little bit of explanation here. When you are dealing strictly with the transfer of value, it is within the payments industry really a race to the bottom in terms of fees. If you're a payments processor, just processing credit card payments, the thing that your customers measure you on is how much do you cost, and you compete on fees. It's not a very good model. It does drive prices down to near zero. But value-added services are really the way to go. You're adding value to the transaction beyond just providing a transaction. Examples of this are payment gateways that aggregate payment information, present it to the merchant in a very easy-to-read format, allowing them to take action to steer customers towards lower-cost transaction options, doing things like loyalty programs, rewards. These are things that drive new business for the merchant, help them manage their customer base, those types of things, and those are much more valuable than the transaction itself. And so if we start to explore some of those opportunities over time, I think that we will have the ability to invest in programs like that, integrate them into what we're doing, and find ways beyond just a transaction fee to create value and capture a portion of that value for our Masternode owners. And so I think that we're treating this very much like a payments business and have the ability to pull different levers in order to get the revenue needed to run a healthy and robust network. The next question comes from Big Art Canada. He says, I would like to hear what the core team thinks about setting up a transparent arm-length decentralized governments by blockchain audit system for the purpose of collecting and reporting all treasury transactions. Yes, so the things that I really focused on last year when it came to the core team's finances was making sure that everything that we're doing is fully auditable and can be audited by a third party, with matching between the records associated with the transaction and the blockchain transactions themselves, as well as the accounting entries. And so we have all three of those things tied together, and the blockchain itself is fully transparent. I keep all of the funds in the payout address associated with a proposal until those funds are dispensed with or transferred to another budget. For example, when a particular business development proposal is completed, any residual funds would roll over into the main business development budget. So we're already doing a lot of the things that allow for us to be audited in a fully transparent manner. I think the question has an inkling of whether or not that can be done through the governance system itself. And I think the governance system itself is capable of just about anything in terms of programming things that can allow greater transparency. And so I think the short answer to the question is yes, we're very mindful of it. I think we're already the most transparent blockchain project out there. If you compare the level of transparency over our financials to that of Bitcoin Foundation, for example, they file their Form 990 annually with the IRS and haven't even put the most recent one up on their website. And so I think in comparison to that, we're much more transparent. And certainly in comparison to other major projects in the space, we're highly transparent on how funds are being used. And we're also storing those funds on the blockchain transparently in the addresses in which the core team is paid out to. And so in real time, anyone can be checking on our assets and how much funding has been dispensed. So we're very mindful to be transparent. We're attempting everything we can to be as transparent as we can. And so that will continue, and we're very open to ideas about arm length auditing. I think it's on our roadmap actually probably for this year to get some audits done and give our investors a lot more confidence that what we're doing is on the up and up. So yeah, very, very willing to explore those options, and we actively are. Next few questions come from Halso. When will the Dash Foundation board be refreshed? Are there plans to attract new high-profile directors from the broader crypto and finance world? Robert, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm the only board member except Evan here. So, yeah, we are going to have next elections as soon as possible. Before that, what we are doing is, what we are going to do and what we are doing is to decrease the current fees for foundation participation. We would like to attract as many as many new members as possible, and we are also in contact with our industry members, which we have two, and we want to clarify whether are they going to submit their new candidates for the elections or not. We have received one response so far and waiting for another, and the elections will be started as soon as possible. Are there plans to attract new high-profile directors from the broader crypto finance world? We don't have these plans this year. If there are candidates who would like to participate in elections, it's an open process. They can, but we were not going to attract this kind of profiles this year. Thanks.
And if you were a king for a day, what are the top 3 business integrations you would have implemented in the next 18 months, Daniel?
Right. Well, I think the first thing we need to clarify is that all of our decisions are made in consensus within the core team. So although we wear different hats and we take care of different areas within the project, final decisions in each area are always discussed and approved before moving forward. So I would say there's always a group effort in any of the areas we're working on. There's just a responsible person for them. But this is a hypothetical question, right? So I'm going to try to avoid, theorizing too much. But I would say, one of the most important ones is happening already, which is BlockCypher, just because we needed an API web service available that really represents a number of opportunities in one. So that's definitely one that's very important. Secondly, I think I would be interested in a very high-profile crypto financial service to adopt Dash. I don't think it's prudent to name names at this point. And thirdly, I think we're also working on some high-profile, let's say, financial or industry services that may be outside of crypto, of the crypto vertical. So we would like a win of a major service outside of crypto, let's say, that takes Dash ahead of other digital currencies, including Bitcoin or Ethereum. So I think those would be like our three, objectives in the next 18 months, answering your question. Although, I mean, we have a number of services we're working on. You asked for three.
All right, should I move on to the next one? Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So can you explain some of the under-the-hood functionality that was included as part of 12.1? For example, does it allow the network to change variables like masternode collateral amount, or can it be used to introduce collateralized mining? Evan?
Okay, so there's a little bit of an issue with changing things within the core software from the new governance system in 12.1. It would actually have to be done within the core software as well. And so you can't do things like changing the collateral requirements, because those are like hard-coded amounts, right? What 12.1 is really for is it lays the foundation for our governance system, and it allows us to make various types of generic objects so that we can store data in something like Dash Drive. And then it also allows us to rapidly evolve our internal structure so that we can change it and grow at a greater clip. And while doing that, maintain complete transparency in history of all of the things that happen. And so over the next few months, I want to introduce some concepts of this to the community and start going down my personal roadmap of what I think we should be doing, and then we'll itemize these things and talk about them each, and then have votes on them. And then the governance system is it's made to do this, so we can add these things if approved, and then incrementally build the system out for evolution. And so that's really what it's for.
You'll start to see, I think, the changes to the system roll out in a couple of months. We do want to continue to run the 12.0 replicated system on this for a couple of months while we test and refine and make sure that everything is running smoothly. But then we'll start to introduce some of these things, correct?
Exactly,
Yeah. So you'll start to get a better idea of what it's capable of when we start to introduce those types of changes.
Yeah, it's capable of a lot, which is the really neat thing about it, but it's hard to get a grasp on because the technology is completely brand new. It's basically the first decentralized database with the idea of designing the schema. So you can imagine what you can do with that.
Yeah. All right. So next question, and this is the final question from the pre-submitted ones, is at the start of the year, Ryan predicted we would be in the top 4 of all cryptocurrencies by the end of the year. Given we've already passed that point barely a couple of months later, would you like to take this opportunity to make a less conservative prediction? Well, I think it would be very conservative to say we will be in the top 3 by the end of the year, but given we're already there too. But yeah, it was a conservative prediction at the beginning of the year, and in retrospect, very much so. I do think that the possibility exists at this point, and it's likely to happen, that we're going to have our Ethereum moment sometime in the next couple of quarters, in which the market really takes note of what we've done and what we're continuing to do. And I think when that mainstream press starts to realize the importance of our project, I think that we could have a run-up close to $1 billion this year. We're already a third of the way there. And so, I don't see any reason why we're not at least on par with Ethereum's market cap by the end of the year. And as our budget grows, it just makes it easier and easier to accomplish that. So I think it remains a highly unpredictable situation, but that's my take at this point. I think I can get a little less conservative with my predictions. I hate making them because they're bound to be wrong one way or the other. I'm already wrong on the top four, so. I'll switch things to the questions that have come in since the call began. One question here, can I see the ATM AML requirements documents? I think that was covered during the call. Those will be going up on the website at some point soon. If you have a specific need to see them sooner because you're running an ATM, you can reach out to Daniel and make arrangements to get an early copy of it, I believe, as we've already shared it with ATM operators that had expressed an interest. Next question is question for the media communication team. Why was Dash presented on biggest gambling exhibition in Europe, ICE London? One would think that Dash should be used to avoid paying taxes that are used to compensate ruined lives and protection against gambling. Yeah, I mean, we are approaching legal businesses that.
Well, I can take one. I can take that one, Ryan. I think that in general, Dash has to really remain agnostic, and the question is a little bit political. So I don't think we are judges of whether the gaming industry, morals, where do those stand? And so I think that we really can't get into that on this call. But we must say that as a blockchain and a permissionless system and as a network that values freedom, open markets, we should remain open to people voluntarily engaging in any activities they want to, as long as they are doing that without harming others. So I think our stance would continue to be that blockchains should be permissionless and should refrain from taking political stances as much as possible.
Yeah.
What is worth to mention is the fact that cryptocurrencies like Dash are perfect match for gambling and online gambling industry. And when we are going there together with CoinFirm, for example, we are fully protected from frauds and we are fully compliant to our partners on the business side. So therefore our direction and our presence into ICE conference.
All right, next question came from Richard Silva. What are the core team's thoughts about setting up transparent? Okay, we already got this question. That was referring to the audit system. Here's a question from Ali Mohammed. Is there concern that as prices rise fast, the number of masternodes will decrease? How would this affect the transactional side of Dash? I don't think we're seeing evidence that is the case. The drop in masternodes seems to be associated with the rollout of 12.1, not the price increase. In fact, we've seen very little disruption to the masternode network as the price has grown. Very few have decided now is the time to cash out. But in essence, I don't think it's a concern. The reason is because if it's very much a free market system. If the number of masternodes begins to decrease, the return on investment associated with running a masternode increases because there's fewer masternodes to split the payments with. And so it's kind of a self-correcting problem. That will attract capital. I also think that there are relatively minor barriers to getting the necessary capital to run a masternode right now. You may not have $50,000, but chances are you and 10 of your friends do, and you can, set up an LLC. I don't think that the barriers are very great to being able to start one in the first place. So I think this is really a self-correcting problem. And if transactions grow on the network, Masternode rewards will increase as well from the transaction fees. So if the network starts to experience transaction growth, it will encourage more masternodes to come online as well. So we've really designed it in a way that it's meant to be robust. Worst case scenario, you could change the masternode funding collateral requirements to 500, and you'd see a huge jump in the number of masternodes on the network. So those issues are easily dealt with, and you'll be able to see them coming from about 500 miles away. So I don't think it's really a concern. Next question, Chuck Williams, what are the current thoughts about team structure and long-term project management strategies? I'm curious how communications will be sustained and maintained, how people will be held accountable for deliverables and rewarded for successes. Do you want to take that one, or should I?
Okay. Well, I think you can speak to our current HR research, and I think that very much speaks to that.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously with the big price run-up, I think, people are benefiting from that in different ways that are on the team. Some people have made significant investments in Dash. Some people are new to Dash and are only earning a salary associated with it. And so there is a lot of differences there in terms of rewards for success. One thing that we are doing is there was a proposal for this a couple months ago, and we've engaged them, August Talent Ventures. Fernando is leading that project, and August Talent Ventures is coming in and doing a number of things for us. They're basically helping to define the roles that are on the team and define what market rates for those roles ought to be based on the person's experience, their role, their geographic location, and a number of other variables that go into making up a compensation package. And we're putting together packages that are going to be much more sustainable for folks. We have lost a couple of people that haven't been able to sustain their full-time status over financial issues. That shouldn't be the case. If we have a talented person who we have spent a lot of time and resources ramping up on the project, we want to retain them, and we want to have Dash be a good experience for them. So, so that project is ongoing, and will not only define those things, but also help us with what are the other aspects that need to be put in place. We're also exploring bringing on an HR professional. I think Robert and I are completely overwhelmed with contracts and payments and keeping people happy and up to date on communications and everything. I think having an HR person dedicated to and who has expertise in this area would be a valuable addition to the team. So we're exploring that option as well. So there's a couple of things, very practical things that we're doing right now to address the team issues and make it a much more sustainable experience for people and a sustainable career for people, and not just some project and hobby that they have on the side and work on the weekends and evenings, but can actually pursue as a career. So we're moving in that direction. And then there's the governance system, which is going to add a lot of new capabilities too. I don't know if you want to talk about some of those things.
Probably not immediately. We do definitely have plans for how to integrate the governance system into a much more sustainable model for employing people and making it work a lot more efficiently. This has been, an experiment from how you transfer from completely voluntary workforce that's mostly just hobbyists to a completely organized corporate but decentralized structure ran on a completely decentralized system. And so, we're figuring it out as we go, and I think our ideas are working really, really well. So I don't see any issues with that in the future.
Coinbase updates. Are there talks with Coinbase? Daniel, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, sure. I don't think we can really name names in terms of who are we specifically speaking with, because that would really go against the business etiquette of the process. So you can know that we are talking to several brand name startups in the space, and we expect to continue to work towards integration with them. But I think it would be out of line for us to start naming people specifically without them granting us permission to do so. So we're going to have to pass on that one.
Yeah. Obviously, we are starting to see success with some of the larger exchanges, with one already implemented and another one on the way. So, it is going to be a focus for us to continue to bring those on and give people options. So know that we are working on major exchanges like Coinbase. Next question comes from Richard Silva. As a merchant, one of the shortcomings of all crypto is the lack of real-time support. I think there's a question mark there. And so I think he's asking, will we be able to provide real-time support, I suppose in the form of maybe like a call center or something for merchants, or what?
Yeah, so eventually we have plans to open some sort of call center and then allow people to call in and ask questions and get immediate help and have a sort of help desk.
Right. He does complete his question, Ryan, like immediately below that. It's part of the same question, so I think we're missing part of the context.
To complete my question, I was separated by another message here. To complete my question, merchants I've talked to that are willing to accept Dash or Bitcoin find it too difficult to set up and exit the ecosystem, as most brick and mortar businesses have little knowledge in the field. Is the team looking to create a merchant integration and support team in the near future to address this? So I think for larger merchants, we're already doing this. John Kindle oftentimes is engaged with major opportunities, particularly if we're engaged with like a point of sale system manufacturer that that will basically sell Dash to each of their customers. That's the type of thing where we're already supporting it.
Right. And I would like to add to your answer, Ryan. I think that it's important to understand that Dash plays a role in its market where we cannot really compete necessarily vertically with some service providers in our ecosystem. So I think our first approach is to partner with people and work with them so that they can incorporate Dash into their solutions, and then they can manage end users at the merchant level, right? There are going to be some exceptions at this stage of the game, like Ryan is mentioning. If this specific merchant is very high profile and we feel we would benefit very much from brand association, then we may make an exception at this point in time and go direct and try to help, especially at this phase of the project. But reality is we still have a number of, let's say, spaces or holes in our ecosystem that we're working very hard to fill. And our latest partnerships are helping very much in that sense. So we have active conversations with more, let's say, or larger payment processors, consulting services, so on and so forth. So we can really build an ecosystem that is decentralized and healthy and can then go ahead and service merchants and end users. So that's the long-term goal, to develop the ecosystem in a way that it's self-serving. But definitely, as we mentioned, exceptions will be made for special cases, especially in this transition time when we don't have all those payment processors and services available. We will engage directly in helping people, but our long-term goal is to let the ecosystem handle it.
Yeah. This is a good approach for a couple different reasons. One is it allows us to hit a large number of potential merchants at once when you bring on a partner who already has those relationships and can drive Dash adoption into those merchants, as opposed to supporting one-offs at a time. It's just a much more efficient way to get our product out to market. I think that maybe someday it will make sense to support every mom and pop shop directly if we ever have the budgets to do that. But I think we're still a long ways from being able to do that at this point in time, given our current budget constraints and everything. So we're really looking for the most efficient route to market. I think for the time being, this is an area where the community can be of huge help. If you know of a merchant that wants to integrate and have some expertise, or can participate on the Slack where people can come for support, those are both great options for smaller merchants that want to integrate early. And in the meantime, we're going to be focusing on the bigger levers that we can pull to get it in as many places as we can. And then eventually, I think we can do the type of thing that I think the question is alluding to. Next question comes from Pablo Lima. Could you please speak some more on Evolution Alpha and Beta delivery? Are we still on track for end of year? Has development begun in earnest, or are we still in the planning phase?
I think John Kindle helped us a little bit on that. Maybe, John, you can speak to that one.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, really the planning phase of Dash Evolution is something that started well over a year ago. I've been working closely with Andy Freer on this process really throughout the entirety of 2016. He's been working on building really the model of how exactly this is going to work. So I am happy to confirm that planning phase of this project has already been finished. And so really what we're doing is taking a 50-some page white paper that has been put together, and really we're drilling deeper into that. The issue with a larger team is that, from that white paper, the author of that white paper could probably code the whole thing. It would take him 5 years, but he could probably code the whole thing. The phase that we're at now is really compartmentalizing each of the different aspects of that design so that we can then split into smaller teams and really start to actually execute those things. So, as part of that, really identifying what falls within the scope of each one of those things. So what is in scope for alpha, what is in scope for beta, and so on and so forth, really ultimately determines when we can release those things. So to that end, we're being careful in building the system in a holistic manner, which simultaneously allows us to incrementally release versions with each functionality. So, really to answer your question, I do feel that we still are on track to be able to deliver something by the end of Q2, and then to be able to continue building off of that, just kind of depending on what types of things we might run into. I think one of the things with estimating deadlines and project timelines in IT is that even when you factor it in, usually it takes about 150% of the time that you say it's going to take, because you just run into a lot of various things. And really much of the work that we're doing right now is building out those components. To speak to the other aspect of, are these just plans right now, or have we actually started building any of it? I can confirm that throughout that planning process, we've been creating proofs of concept, types of, build-outs for each of those functions, so that we know, A, is it possible to do what we're doing? Is it reasonable? And would this approach fit with all of the other aspects of it? So I hope that at least kind of fills in some of the blanks of where we are today and where we'll kind of be as the year progresses.
All right. Thank you, John. So I think the next question here is from Ali Mohammed again. Any developers from other crypto markets leaving to join Dash? Did any of the new team members of the dev team come from Ethereum Classic, Ethereum, or Bitcoin? So I'm not aware that any of them came from one of those projects. I will tell you that we feel strongly that, and having not just C++ experience, but having Bitcoin experience really helps newcomers to onboard to the project quickly. And I don't think we're just going to sit idly by and wait for the best developers to come to us. We've started to actually reach out, particularly to the Bitcoin Unlimited crowd, which we think might be more amenable to the message, to try and network our way to developers there and try to see if there might be any interest on any of their parts to come work for the project. If anybody knows any of those folks too personally, a personal introduction is always welcomed. It does help with the receptivity and so on. And so, if anybody has connections or folks that they would recommend, certainly pass them along. I'm going to be doing more on that front to try and, after next week probably to really drive that and see if we can start reaching out to more and more of those folks and ideally bring people in that already know the code to a certain extent. So it does take 6 to 12 months probably to onboard and get a new developer up and running and productive. So if we're going to make that kind of investment in someone, it helps if they already have some familiarity.